In a small, quiet town, there lived a man named Ari. A young man full of hope, just married the woman of his dreams, Siska. Everything felt perfect. The two of them had just finished a wonderful wedding, surrounded by their closest family and friends. Ari was a simple man, hardworking and loving. He always appreciated every little moment in life. Siska, his wife, was an extraordinary woman. Her beauty captivated the hearts of everyone who saw her. Growing up with a simple background, Siska knew very well how to appreciate the people around her. Their first night as a married couple arrived. The two of them chose to spend the night in a small house they rented, far from the hustle and bustle of the city, in a quiet and peaceful place. They celebrated the new beginning of their lives happily. No one could have predicted what would happen after that night. Ari invited Siska to their room. Everything seemed perfect. The dim lights, the sweet scent of candles, and the sound of the night wind touching the window created a romantic atmosphere. No one could have guessed that that night would be a turning point in their lives. The first night is a symbol of the beginning of a long journey, Ari thought, watching Siska's sweet smile. Everything felt so beautiful, so perfect. However, there was a strange feeling that began to settle in Ari's heart. A feeling that was hard to explain. Siska approached, hugging him gently. Ari felt comfortable. But for some reason, there was something unusual in her embrace. As if there was something hidden behind that smile. A feeling that seemed to remind him that their life would not be as simple as he imagined. "Good night, honey," Siska whispered, her voice soft and soothing. However, there was a subtle vibration that Ari could not ignore. What would happen tonight? Would the happiness they felt continue, or was this the beginning of an unsolved mystery? That night, Ari fell asleep in his wife's arms, not knowing that their first night would change their lives forever. Everything was fine until the night ended. However, something unexpected would soon change everything. Their first night passed, but something strange began to happen. Ari woke up in the middle of the night, awakened by a faint sound coming from the direction of the bathroom. The sound was like the sound of someone walking slowly, accompanied by soft, unclear whispers. His heart beat faster. It must be just the sound of the wind, he thought, trying to calm himself. However, his instinct said otherwise. Something was wrong. Ari got out of bed, checking the condition of the room and the other rooms. Siska was fast asleep in bed, sleeping soundly, as if not affected at all by the sounds. Slowly, Ari opened the bathroom door, but all he found was silence. The bathroom was empty. Nothing. However, when he closed the bathroom door, Ari felt something strange. For a moment, a dark shadow crossed the bathroom mirror. He turned around quickly, but there was nothing. Only his own reflection was visible in the glass. Ari shook his head, trying to convince himself that it was just an imagination disturbed by drowsiness. However, when he returned to the room, he felt something unusual about Siska. His wife's face looked different. Her lips were smiling, but not like usual. Her smile seemed too wide, like a forced smile. Ari began to feel an inexplicable tension. Was she just tired? Or was there something darker that was starting to lurk? "Honey, are you okay?" Ari asked, trying to make sure. But Siska just nodded without opening her eyes. Ari stared at her longer. Her smile felt strange. Siska's eyes that should have been full of warmth now seemed empty, like there was no life in them. In his heart, Ari began to feel increasingly deep doubts. There was something very wrong, even though everything looked normal. Why did Siska look so calm and undisturbed by anything? Why did her smile feel so empty? Ari decided not to express his suspicions right away. He sat on the edge of the bed, trying to calm his mind. Maybe it's just tiredness, he thought again, trying to convince himself. However, the anxiety that arose was so strong it kept him awake all night, fighting against the feelings that began to burden his heart. The next morning, Siska woke up earlier than usual. There were no signs of fatigue, as if she had slept soundly without any disturbance. Siska returned with the same smile, but this time Ari began to feel the tension getting stronger. He began to wonder if there was something hidden behind his wife's increasingly strange behavior. Ari tried to find further clues, but there was nothing suspicious. Everything in the house looked as usual. However, he couldn't help but feel that something was lurking, something darker than he could imagine. Ari tried not to focus too much on the strange feeling, but the next night, an even more terrifying incident happened again. This time, the feeling was stronger, and Ari began to feel that his quiet life was about to change forever. The silence of the night felt increasingly oppressive, as if something was waiting to be revealed. And that's when Ari knew. The strangeness he felt was no coincidence. Something bigger was watching them, and he, Ari, didn't know if he would be able to survive this unexpected reality. Days passed, but Ari's tension grew. He couldn't calm his mind. Every night, the shadows that crossed his mind in the bathroom, Siska's strange smile, and the increasingly strong feeling of pressure kept him awake all night. Ari knew that something was very wrong, and he had to find out what it was. One afternoon, as they were sitting together in the living room, Ari decided to speak. "Siska," he said in a slightly trembling voice, "there's been something strange lately. I feel something's not right. Are you okay?" Siska looked at him with calm eyes, but her smile remained the same. "I'm fine, honey," she answered softly, her voice barely audible like the sound of the wind whispering. Ari fell silent, feeling the distance between them growing. That night, Ari decided to do something brave. He had to find out what really happened to his wife. Was Siska really the woman he married, or was there something darker hiding behind her? Ari began to search for information, digging up any clues he might have missed. He opened old books, read stories about creatures that could change shape, and found out more about terrifying legends. Ari even started contacting friends who were more experienced in supernatural matters, trying to find an explanation for all the strange events he experienced. However, every effort Ari made him feel more trapped. Everyone he met only gave him warnings and warned him to stop looking further. "Sometimes it's better if we don't know everything," said a friend who had experienced a similar incident. However, Ari couldn't stop. His curiosity grew. He felt that his life, their lives, were at stake. If he didn't find the answer, who knows what would happen to him and Siska. Over time, the feeling of fear turned into a strong determination. Ari tried to do a small ritual that he learned from various sources to try to uncover the hidden secret behind the strangeness that happened. He prepared the bedroom with candles, created a calm atmosphere, and prepared to talk to Siska. "Tonight, I will know what happened," Ari thought, determined. However, as soon as he started to recite the mantra silently, the bedroom lights suddenly went out. A strange silence filled the room, as if the world had stopped spinning. Ari looked at Siska, who was now standing in the corner of the room, staring at him expressionlessly. "Honey, what are you doing?" Ari asked, trying to calm the atmosphere. Siska remained silent. Then in a very calm voice, she said, "You shouldn't know the truth, but now there's no turning back." Ari felt his body freeze. Siska's usually soft voice now sounded like an echo from another world. A terrible truth began to be revealed. Siska approached, and at that moment, Ari saw clearly that something was very wrong. Siska's eyes had turned pitch black, without irises and pupils, just endless darkness. Ari was shocked, almost speechless. He felt like he was trapped in a real nightmare. "Who are you?" Ari asked in a trembling voice. Siska, or whatever it was, just smiled. "I'm not who you think I am, Ari," she replied, "and you can't escape your destiny." Ari fell silent, his heart pounding. Everything he had learned, everything he had done, nothing could have prepared him for this reality. He was not only faced with something inexplicable, but with something that even surpassed human reason. Now he had to face the harsh reality. His wife was not the human he knew. With his determination growing stronger, Ari had to choose. Would he fight his destiny and face this creature at all costs? Or would he surrender and accept a darker reality? And so, Ari found himself at an unavoidable crossroads. His search for the truth had just begun, but there was no guarantee that he would emerge from this darkness alive. Ari felt as if the world he had known had collapsed in an instant. The face of Siska that he loved had now turned into something terrible, and he didn't know how to accept this reality. However, Ari knew one thing: he had to fight. There was no other choice. That night, he decided to look for deeper answers. With a growing conviction, he looked for a way to free Siska from whatever had taken control of her. He began to look around for old books, talk to people who were more knowledgeable about the supernatural world, and even try to perform more intense rituals. However, every step he took seemed in vain. Every ritual he tried, every question he asked, brought Ari deeper into the darkness. He felt increasingly trapped, and the darkness was getting closer. Ari stood in front of the large mirror hanging in the living room, staring at his face that now looked tired and full of anxiety. The face that was once full of hope was now filled with real fear. In front of him, Siska's shadow began to appear, not in physical form, but in a strange dark reflection. "I can't escape," Ari thought, staring at himself wrapped in the darkness of the shadows. "The more I search, the more I get entangled." Suddenly, Siska's reflection in the mirror spoke, her voice sounding much deeper and more terrifying, like a voice from another world. "You've gone too far, Ari. There's no way out of this. Your fate has already been written." Ari stared at the reflection with determined eyes. He knew that he couldn't give up. If he did, then Siska, the woman he loved, the woman he had known all this time, would be lost forever, becoming part of a dark world he couldn't imagine. Ari chose to try the last step, a very risky way. He found information about a ritual that could free someone from evil powers, but there was a price to pay. The ritual required someone to give up something most precious in their life, something unimaginable to sacrifice. With a heavy heart, Ari decided to do it. He prepared to face the ritual, even though he knew that this choice would change his life forever. In the darkness of the night, Ari prepared his ritual room. He lit the candles, arranged the symbols in the ancient book, and waited. But as time went by, an inevitable feeling began to haunt him. Was he really ready to sacrifice the most precious thing in his life? Siska stood before him, calmer this time, her eyes blank. She stared at Ari, as if she knew what he was going to do. "Do you still want to keep fighting?" she asked in a soft but threatening voice. "Yes," Ari answered in a firm voice. "I will fight until the end." But as soon as the ritual began, something unexpected happened. The candlelight dimmed, and dark shadows began to creep from the corners of the room. Ari felt his body weak, almost unable to move. Suddenly, the shadow enveloped him, trying to pull him into deeper darkness. Ari felt his body being pulled into a dark and distant place, but he held on. There was only one thing on his mind. He had to save Siska. Suddenly, the shadow stopped. A voice was heard, a voice that was terrifying but familiar. "If you choose to sacrifice something precious, then all of this will end, Ari. But if you choose to keep it, nothing can be saved. Ari felt like he was trapped in an unsolvable dilemma. What could he sacrifice to save Siska? Would he lose himself, or was there another way to stop all of this? He had to choose, and it was the last choice. Ari stood in the middle of the darkness, surrounded by a dark shadow that threatened to erase everything. The voice still echoed in his ears. If you choose to sacrifice something precious, then everything will end. But if you choose to hold onto it, nothing can be saved. Ari felt his chest tighten, his heart pounding. He knew that this was the point where there was no turning back. Siska, his wife, was already on the verge of destruction, trapped in a shadow that he could not understand. However, he also knew one thing. There was one choice he had to make. If I choose to sacrifice something precious, does that mean I will lose Siska forever? Ari thought, staring at the dark shadow that enveloped him. Or if I choose to hold on to what I love, will everything be destroyed? Ari remembered every beautiful moment with Siska, every laugh and memory they shared. He couldn't imagine life without her, but he also didn't want to let himself be trapped in the darkness that was so dark and infinite. Ari knew what he had to choose. He would not give up. He would not let this darkness win. With a determined heart, he decided to fight, to defend the love and life he knew. I choose to fight, he whispered softly. At that moment, the dark shadows surrounding him began to subside, as if understanding Ari's decision. The candlelight that had begun to dim lit up brightly again, illuminating the previously pitch-black room. Ari looked around, and amidst the receding darkness, he saw Siska. Siska's previously empty eyes were now beginning to come back to life, filled with the sparkle he knew. Honey. Siska's voice sounded soft but full of confusion. She walked closer and Ari felt his heart relieved. It was as if the burden he had been carrying all this time had just disappeared. Siska reached out her hand and Ari took it with full hope. He knew that Siska was now free from the grip of darkness. They both looked at each other, and it was as if the world had stopped spinning. There were only the two of them who loved each other. Ari, what happened? Siska asked in a trembling voice. I feel like I'm trapped in a long nightmare. Ari nodded, feeling emotional. It's over, Siska. You're back. They both hugged each other tightly, feeling the comfort that had been lost. All the fear and anxiety that had haunted them were now gone. They knew that even though they did not fully understand what had happened, their love was stronger than anything. That night, they both slept peacefully. The silence that enveloped the room now felt comfortable without any threat from the dark world that had once disturbed them. Ari and Siska had passed the greatest test in their lives, and now they were back together, stronger than ever. However, even though peace had returned, Ari could not forget the lesson he had learned. That love is not something that can be taken for granted, and that sometimes we must choose to fight the darkness that tries to destroy what we love. Their lives were never the same after that night. They knew that they had to take care of each other, fight together, and cherish every second they had. A love that was stronger than any threat. After that night, Ari and Siska's lives returned to normal, albeit with a different feel. They no longer saw the world the same way. The struggles they faced had changed their views on life, love, and truth. Something dark had tried to take over them, but they managed to survive and come out stronger than before. Ari sat on the porch of their house, enjoying a cup of coffee while watching the sun rise slowly. He thought about everything that had happened, how easy it is to get caught up in fear and doubt, without seeing how strong the power of love can change everything. Siska sat beside him, smiling softly, as if nothing had ever disturbed their peace. Ari, "What are we going to do now?" Siska asked, her eyes full of warmth. Ari looked at Siska with a gaze full of love. "We will continue to walk together," he replied. "No matter what happens, we will stay together. We have been through a lot, and we will always fight for our love." They both held hands, realizing that their journey was still long. But this time, they knew that they would never be alone. They have overcome the greatest test of their lives, and it has only made their bond stronger. Ari and Siska are back home, continuing their lives full of happiness and peace. They know that nothing can take away their happiness because they have learned to appreciate every moment they have, even in the darkness that once threatened them. The biggest lesson they took away from the experience was that, although there are many things we cannot control, true love is a force greater than anything. It is a force that can overcome all obstacles, overcome fears, and change our lives forever. They also learned that there is nothing more important in this life than supporting each other, fighting together, and protecting the love that has been given. And although the world can seem full of darkness, they know that with love and determination, we can always find light, even in the darkest times. Ari and Siska, who were once trapped in darkness, now live in the light that they have created together. They have overcome everything that has been in their way, and now they are ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. But this time, they know that no matter what happens, they will always have each other. That is the story of Ari and Siska, a journey of love full of trials, but finally ends with eternal happiness. Because in the end, true love will always find a way, no matter how dark the world is. The two of them, who were once trapped in dark shadows, now walk together under the light they find, stronger and more confident in the power of love. Maybe we can all learn from this story that in life we will always face unexpected challenges and fears. But if we have true love, the courage to fight, and the determination to fight, we can overcome whatever comes. Because in the end, love is the answer to all the mysteries in this world. Who knows, maybe you will also be part of the next story. See you if you still dare.